To this day, we've covered many strange and bizarre deaths, but today we're going to dive into a truly mysterious and strange case in Japan. It's a very suspicious and illogical death where nothing makes sense. Listen carefully because it's very confusing. If you like this type of case, don't forget to like and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episodes. The story goes back to 6 p.m. on the 28th of February 1989. A 3-year-old Japanese teacher, who worked in the village of Toru in the district of Tsukukubo, finished her work and walked to the teacher's dormitory. It was a cold winter night, and the teacher had her own private room in the dormitory. Right next to her room was the public women's restroom. In those days, there was no plumbing or advanced facilities in that village. The toilets were similar to Iranian ones, just with a slightly larger hole that connected directly to a large septic tank. The shape of these tanks was like a U-shaped pipe that went to the toilet on one end, and the other end was used for draining the sewage from the outside. The pipe's diameter was also very large, sometimes reaching 50 centimeters. That night, when the teacher entered the restroom and was about to sit down, she suddenly noticed a floating slipper in the toilet hole. She quickly ran out of the restroom and opened the lid on the other side of the tank, the one for draining, and came face to face with a horrifying scene. In fear and panic, she ran to the dormitory manager's room and screamed that she had seen a person's legs in the tank. The manager also ran to the scene. The two of them tried to pull the person out of the tank, but as soon as they touched the body, they realized the person was no longer alive. They left the body there and immediately called the police. When the police arrived, they were faced with a strange scene. Inside the tank was the body of a man with his hands crossed over his chest, as if in prayer. A clean and neat shirt was placed between his hands. He was lying on his back, with his face turned towards the toilet hole, as if he could have looked inside the restroom if he had been alive. He was barefoot, had no socks or shoes, and his upper body was completely naked. The body was submerged in sewage up to the neck, so much so that they had to completely wash it before the autopsy. After cleaning, the identity of the body was revealed. Naoyuki Kanno, a 26-year-old local who was known by all the villagers as a kind, polite, and pleasant person. Naoyuki had been missing since the 24th of February, and now his body was found on the 28th of February. According to the coroner's report, he had probably died on the same day he went missing. There were only a few minor scratches on his elbows and knees, and no signs of a struggle or murder. The police came to the conclusion and said, well, this poor guy was a pervert who went into the women's restroom tank and got stuck. But what was the cause of death? Hypothermia? Hypothermia is a severe drop in body temperature that causes internal organs to shut down, cells to break apart, and body fluids to freeze. The person experiences hallucinations and aggression, and if they are not rescued, they easily die. In short, the police easily closed the case and said the guy was a pervert who got stuck in the tank and died of the cold. However, Naoyuki's father and many of the villagers were very angry with this conclusion. They all knew Naoyuki and said it was impossible for such a respectable person to do such a thing. On the other hand, there were many unanswered questions about the condition of the body that made many people suspicious. Now, the main question is, how did Naoyuki even get into that cursed pipe? As I said at the beginning of the story, this sewage pipe had a special design. The inner side, where the toilet was only 20 centimeters in diameter. That means even a child could barely fit through it, let alone an adult man. But the outer side of the pipe, where it connected to the tank, was 36 centimeters in diameter. Now imagine a man with a height of 170 centimeters and a shoulder width of about 40 centimeters, trying to get through a pipe with a diameter of 36 centimeters. Is it possible for this person to squeeze himself into that pipe without external pressure or someone's help? Even more interesting, after the body was found, Naoyuki's father went and bought exactly one of those pipes, cut it in half, and tried to reenact the scene. The result was impossible to believe. A person with that build could not enter that pipe with clothes on, let alone without clothes. On the other hand, Naoyuki was not a foolish person. He had no history of mental problems, nor was he an adventurous or risk-taking person. Now let's assume this person changed and had some perverted thoughts and said, "I'll go into the sewage pipe." Well, didn't he know that if he went in, there was no way back? Didn't he know he could get stuck, suffocate in the feces, or freeze to death? And if he did get stuck, why didn't he ask for help? Why didn't he scream? Why didn't he struggle to save himself? Another very strange point is that it was a holiday for a few days, and the teacher was not in the dormitory. But did no one else use the public restroom during those 2 days? Did no one hear Naoyuki's voice? Or was there no voice at all? The next strange point is that there were no bruises or injuries on his body. Well, this is very suspicious, because someone who wants to enter a pipe that is so narrow with that build would definitely get injured. Their body would be bruised, scratched, and bruised, especially if they had struggled for a few hours in that situation. But Naoyuki's body was completely healthy. No injuries, no bruises, no scratches. And now let's get to his clothes. It was February, the middle of winter. That day in the village of Toru, about 20 centimeters of snow had fallen, and the weather was very cold. But Naoyuki was barefoot, and his clothes were neatly folded next to him. The question is, does a person take off their clothes in that biting cold, fold them neatly, and then go into frozen feces naked and barefoot, and with full consent? It just doesn't make sense. And the strangest part of the story is the shoes. At the beginning of the story, we said that the teacher saw a slipper in the toilet hole. Investigations showed that the slipper belonged to Naoyuki. But what happened to the other slipper? After much searching, the second slipper was found in the bed of a river far from the scene of the incident. Moreover, the river's path did not even reach the sewage tank, so the water current could not have carried it. So, one slipper is in the sewage tank, and the other is at the other end of the village in a river. What does that mean? Who did this? Why? This is where some fingers point to the teacher. Yes, it's true that there is no direct evidence to show that she had no role. But some things are strange. For example, the power was out that night, and there was no light in the restroom. How could the teacher see the slipper at the bottom of the hole? Why did she even go to the toilet? How did she know there was something there? Did she just smell a bad odor? Or did she know something more? Something else that was added was that Naoyuki was a close friend of the teacher's boyfriend. Previously, when an unknown person was making harassing phone calls to the teacher, Naoyuki and her boyfriend had helped her record the call and inform the police. After that incident, their relationship became closer, and they often went out together as a group of 3. No motive for murder was seen. They were acquaintances, they were close, and this was enough for the teacher and her boyfriend to be considered suspects. The story is entering a stranger phase. Now, let's take a closer look. Naoyuki was a wise, popular, and active young man in the community who was not only not a pervert, but was also supposed to be the right-hand man of one of the main mayoral candidates, someone who would likely change a large part of the village's fate. In such circumstances, is it really logical for him to go into a sewage pipe to peek at a teacher he even knew was not in the dormitory on those days? No, it's not logical. It's as if he got out for a moment to do something small, not to go into a pipe and get stuck there for 4 days to die. If that was his intention, he should have at least locked the door, right? Or he wouldn't have left his personal belongings in the car. This shows that he most likely did not voluntarily enter that pipe. Maybe it was an appointment or a trap. Now let's go back to the story of the nuclear power plant. Just 1 month earlier, a heavy radioactive leak occurred in Fukushima Daiichi. An engineer who was directly responsible for that reactor committed suicide. This incident attracted the attention of all of Japan to that area. At the same time, Naoyuki also entered a tense political game, where people were divided into two groups, pro-plant and anti-plant. Naoyuki also directly entered politics, right when tensions had reached their peak. There is a possibility that he knew things he shouldn't have known. Maybe things about the behind the scenes of the power plant, or even political corruption related to the mayoral elections. If we look at it this way, Naoyuki's death is no longer just a mysterious incident inside a sewage pipe. It turns into a much more serious case that powerful people may be behind. Maybe the body in the pipe was a way to hide a calculated murder, in a way that his death would be strange but without clues. And most importantly, that one slipper. Why would one of the shoes be at the crime scene and the other in the bed of a remote river? This means the body was moved before it fell into the sewage tank. It means someone had planned this puzzle in advance. The end of the story leaves a heavy feeling of injustice and mystery. Although the case has been officially closed and labeled as an accidental death due to the cold, the evidence and unanswered questions cast doubt on everything. Let's look at it this way. The death of Naoyuki Kanno looks more like a fabricated scenario than a simple accident. A person who was socially active, popular, and involved in an important political matter suddenly dies accidentally in a sewage pipe, without suitable clothes, without trying to save himself, in a situation where there was practically no reason for him to be there. And when we put all this aside, with the car unlocked, the key left in it, the slipper in the river, and the absence of the teacher, it's really hard to believe this was an accidental death. What do you think? Was he killed, or did he just want to be a peeping Tom?